much in America.
In our court system, we're all supposed to be equal under the law. But are we really? Jim Avila has a tale of Texas justice that might make your blood boil.
WPAP, Fort Worth, Dallas.
This is a story of privilege in a Texas court, where money and connections are not supposed to count. Where we find one judge and two men from very different sides of the tracks who appear to get anything but equal justice. One man has been in prison 16 years and may never get out.
And your sentence is?
A life.
So you've got a life sentence. How many people did you kill?
I ain't kill nobody.
This is the other man, Alex Wood. He did kill someone, but as you can see, he's not in prison despite several run-ins with the law and a dead man in his backyard. Dallas Morning News investigative reporter Brooks Edgerton knows the family history.
He comes from a moneyed family. His father used to be pastor of First Baptist Church in Waco.
First Baptist Church in Waco is not just the corner church, right?
No, it's a big deal. This is one of the most prominent churches in the state of Texas.
Not only is Alex's father, Reverend John Wood, religious royalty in Waco, he served on the board of one of the biggest universities in Texas and has a private big game museum in his house, recently featured in National Geographic magazine. The family has political clout, too. Alex's brother-in-law is 8-term U.S. Congressman Chet Edwards. And Alex dabbles in an expensive hobby, breeding Egyptian pharaoh hounds. So how did this paragon of privilege get in trouble? It started when Alex Wood invited a 22-year-old male prostitute, Larry Clark, to his house as prosecutor Rick Jordan.
They had sex there. Mr. Wood paid Mr. Clark, I believe it was $30.
But Wood wanted a partial refund, and a fight broke out. Wood shot Clark and then called 911.
Listen, there's been accidental shooting at my house. There's a guy injured, and he needs an ambulance, I think.
He claimed self-defense, but there was one big problem with that story.
The man was running away at the time.
Exactly.
His back was turned to Alex Wood.
The autopsy shows he was shot from the back.
Even with that evidence, prosecutor Jordan felt compelled to cut Wood a deal after one dramatic day in court. The grand entrance of one of the most revered people in the city, family friend and pastor of the mega First Baptist Church of Dallas, O.S. Hawkins, seen here in a church video. He'd be a critical character witness for Alex Wood.
There were about 3 women who sat on the front row of the jury. And when O.S. Hawkins came in, it was like they wanted to crawl over the rail and just kiss the ring. It was that type of presence when he walked in the courtroom.
Alex Wood agreed to plead guilty to murder in return for a light sentence of 10 years probation, a free man if he stayed clean. This man, Judge Keith Dean, approved the plea.
That was a very good outcome for him. He got a good deal.
Now to the other side of the tracks, and lifer Tyrone Brown. His background could not be more different. The second oldest of 5 children, none of whom finished high school. Tyrone's mother says he was beaten by his father so badly as a boy, he was put into foster care for a while. This is where Tyrone lived. This was his church.
And how about your church? Could they help you out?
It wasn't no big old church. It was just a little small Baptist church.
Do you know anybody famous that could help you out?
I ain't never met nobody famous.
That's who Tyrone is. Here is what he did. When he was 17, he and a friend waited outside a Dallas Bennigan's for someone to rob. They found a man walking home alone in the dark and put a gun to his face.
First thing he did was say, "Give me your wallet." I only had $2 in my wallet, and I might have had a little bit of change in my pocket.
2020 tracked down the victim, Bill Hathaway, who told us he hadn't thought much about the crime until lately, but does remember Tyrone gave him his wallet back.
I mean, it's a serious crime. I mean, it's an armed robbery. But
Sure.
You weren't hurt.
No.
You got your wallet back right away.
Right.
And the same night, you got your $2 back.
Correct. It really wasn't that big of a deal.
Tyrone Brown pled guilty, and that same Judge Dean gave the teenager 10 years probation, just like Alex Wood.
2 men, same sentence. But that's where the story takes a surprising turn. It's what happens next that no one can fully explain. Because while on probation, both men break the law and must face Judge Keith Dean again. Only this time, they do not get the same sentence.
Alex Wood's privileged life continues. Despite being caught at least twice with cocaine, Wood remains free. His supervision is not even tightened. In fact, he is given even more privileges, allowed by Judge Dean to contact probation officers by mail.
Once a year, you send a postcard to the judge and say, here's my address, here's what I'm doing.
There was other alarming behavior. Dog trainer Margaret Worth, a former friend, says Wood terrorized her over who owned one of the prize puppies.
He took a hammer and smashed the storm door, and he unlocked the door and he broke into the house.
Worth reported it to police but decided not to press charges when Wood's dad intervened, she says, promising her the pup and no more trouble from his son.
Yeah, Daddy called and fixed the whole deal.
Nothing happened to him. He's completed his probation, and so he has no conviction on his record.
And he's free to this day?
He is free.
I went to Wood's house on a quiet street in Waco to ask him how a guy in so much trouble stayed out of prison.
Congratulations on successfully finishing your probation.
But he was camera shy.
From ABC, we want to talk to you for a moment, can we?
By phone, Wood told us he's glad he could afford good attorneys. Tyrone Brown was not so lucky. He settled for a court-appointed lawyer. Like Wood, Brown did violate his probation within a few weeks of his sentence, but not with cocaine.
What'd you do?
Well, I had smoked the joint.
You heard right, one joint. Not nearly as serious as the cocaine Alex Wood was caught with.
Typically, your first time that you test positive for smoking marijuana while you're on probation is something that is noted in the record, and that's about it.
Not this time. Not in Judge Keith Dean's court. I read Tyrone the transcript of his sentencing.
I have the words here. The judge says, you shall be confined for life. Did you hear those words? Do you remember those words?
I mean, I caught the life part, you know, but that's about it.
And then he said, good luck, Mr. Brown.
Yes.
You remember that?
By then, I was in shock. When he said life and down, like my mind just shut down.
Oh, I miss him terribly.
Tyrone's mother, Nora, got a chilling phone call. Her son would not be coming home for dinner, ever.
Mama, he said they gave me life. And I mean, I just, Jesus. I just started crying, you know, and I started screaming. And I said, baby, how can they give you life? What did they give you life for? For what?
No one, not the reporter who uncovered it.
I don't know to this day why these cases turned out so differently.
Not the prosecutor assigned to Judge Dean's court.
It's just mind-boggling.
And perhaps most important, not even the victim of the crime had heard of such a harsh sentence.
Life for smoking marijuana, that's just, I think that was just a little bit much.
Keith Dean is considered a good and respected judge, up for re-election for the 5th time. 2020 tried to talk to him at a candidate forum.
The Code of Judicial Conduct just says I can't talk about any case at any point.
Actually, what the code says is a judge is not allowed to talk about pending or impending cases.
Show me here in this code where it says you can't talk.
So we went to a second candidate event so he could explain.
I would be talking about a case that is in the court if I talked about it at all.
It's not in court. He's in jail.
Well,
he's in prison.
I understand what you're saying, but
he's exhausted all of his appeals. He has no motions in front of you.
I just can't talk about it. The law won't let me talk about it, and I understand that you think that I can, but I just can't. I'm not allowed to. If I could, I would.
Does this case trouble you at all? Do you have any trouble sleeping knowing that this man is in prison for the rest of his life, has been there in jail for 16 years for smoking one joint, while this other man with privilege and contacts and money violated at least twice with cocaine and never spent a day in jail? Both of them in front of your court?
I understand you'd like me to comment on it, but I'm just not allowed to.
The judge is wrong, according to the executive director of the State Commission on Judicial Conduct, who told 2020 it may be the judge's personal preference not to explain his ruling, but there is nothing in the law or judicial code that prohibits him from talking.
Go ahead and turn around and put your hands through the slot.
So Tyrone Brown is left to wonder why he got life, while a murderer still has his freedom, and the man responsible for both decisions.
I'm Keith Dean. I'm judge of the 265th Felony Criminal Court. Thank you.
Has nothing to add to those final words he said to Tyrone. Good luck, Mr. Brown.
When 2020 returns, she made millions in country music.